Welcome to another episode of Master Your Marriage. Thank you so much for being here today. If this is your first time joining the show, welcome. Just so you know, we do drop a new episode every week, so make sure you subscribe to the channel so you get those notifications when a new episode drops. And if you find value from today's episode or any of the episodes, we appreciate you supporting the show by leaving us a 5-star rating on whatever platform you are listening on.
Now, this is a topic that has been asked about frequently on our social media, and due to the very sensitive nature and many different opinions, we've avoided sort of tackling this topic until now. Mm-hmm. In doing the research for this interview, the data is staggering on pornography's effects on relationships and marriages. And to that end, we felt our listeners might benefit from hearing one couple's story about how pornography has affected their relationship. Without further ado, let's bring on Emmanuel and Becca Guarino.
We are talking about a very touchy subject today. We're going to be delving into a topic that is often clouded by a lot of secrecy and shame and stigma. And what we're talking about today is porn. And we've had our podcast running now for over a year.
Hesitant is the word?
And we've been a little hesitant to tackle this topic because we know it's a tough one, but ultimately there's 3 big reasons why we decided that we needed to do this topic and do this topic today with you guys. So the 3 reasons are that first, using pornography has been correlated to decreased sex life satisfaction. And we feel like that plays a huge role in relationships.
Absolutely.
2, that increased that porn can, in some cases, increase a desire for more rough or more violent sexual intimacy in couples, which obviously impacts relationships. And 3rd, there statistically is a correlation of an increased chance of divorce, which I want to get into with you guys today. But we did look up a few statistics that I think are interesting. And Robert, I think you should share those.
I think it's interesting. I think it's staggering. I think we always hear these, and you guys will probably correct me on the ones that we looked up that are wrong, that aren't as relevant. But, based in 2020, if I remember right, there's something like 42 billion visits to Pornhub made from around the world. And that's about 80,000 visits a minute, which is sort of staggering. 25% of all search engine requests are for pornography related material. 42%, of the porn users on the internet, 40% are women. It's estimated that 30% of all websites have at least some version of pornography on them. In 2021, there was something like 420 million pages that contain pornography on the internet. 35% of all internet downloads. So if you're downloading a PDF, like I am for like a project I'm doing in the garage, 35% of all downloads are related to pornography. 25% of workers have accessed pornography on their work computer at work. And then a Nielsen study in 2015, this is 2015. We're not even talking about now, right? Revealed that 73% of women and as high as 98% of women reported pornography use inside of the last 6 months. And while these, for some of us, these are staggering statistics. And for the 2 of you who kind of live and delve in this, I guess the first question that we want to ask is porn good for a marriage?
Oftentimes you hear things like that of, it spices things up, or a psychologist says it's okay in moderation and all these things. Well, is meth okay in moderation? Why are you going to meth in the first place? Why are you going to porn in the first place? And when you think about that, why would someone do that? Well, porn is a pain reliever, a pain for something that's going on inside. And what we ultimately have to do is, whether somebody's watching porn once a year or once a minute, we need to look at why are they going to this thing and handle that root cause problem. Because if we don't, and we just keep running away, it's definitely not going to bring a marriage together. That's for sure.
Yeah. And there was a study done that showed that porn consumption was actually the second highest indicator that a relationship was going to suffer. So in the beginning, people can get really excited watching it, but then it becomes, it's no longer about those 2 people connecting. It's about, okay,
Right.
now we rely on this screen and we need to have this as a stimulus to be able to, have pleasure at all. And so it's not about that connection anymore. It's you're connecting with the
Yeah.
screen instead of your partner. So
Which is
ultimately,
not intimate at all.
no. So it
Yeah.
tears you apart in the long run. Absolutely.
And I suppose like in the beginning, it probably is exciting because you're adding novelty. And anytime you add novelty to sexuality, it becomes fun, it becomes enticing, it becomes exciting. But novelty wears off and then it's no longer novel anymore.
Right.
No. And then you need
Yeah.
greater and greater stimulus, and the things you're watching are crazier. And then it can go
Yeah.
down a lot of bad roads.
Yeah.
And I don't know how far
Yeah.
you want me to go down on that path, but I mean,
Well,
go ahead.
Well, I actually want to start with your story. And then I want to circle back to this because your guys' story is really powerful. And I think it illustrates what happens in marriage. And it's a sadly not uncommon story. So you guys, let's start maybe with Manny. Maybe you can kind of share how it first started for you. What was your first exposure like to pornography? And maybe take us up to the point where you and Becca got married.
Sure. So for me, I grew up in a very sheltered environment, so I didn't see porn very often or really at all. And I was like most millennial kids where we had one computer in the middle of the house, and there was just one random day where I was home alone. None of the siblings were there, the parents were there, and I looked up porn and I found it and I said, well, that was very exciting, but I also knew that I did something that I wasn't supposed to, and I could feel that that wasn't quite right. But I really didn't have that much experience with porn until one day when I was about maybe a junior or senior. My dad walks into my room and says, hey, we just went to the Apple store and we bought so many laptops that they threw in an iPod video on top of it. Do you want this? We were just going to give it to one of your other siblings, but I thought of you. And I'm going, oh my goodness. And so he's walking out of the room and he goes, I just want to ask, can I trust you with this? Are you good with this? And I'm going, I'm good. I'm all set, And
Right.
he had no reason not to trust me because I was a good kid. I played basketball, had lots of friends, did fine in school. But that urge is just way too strong at that age to not have any blockers, to not have any conversations around it. So very early on, I start watching, and it felt very in control very early on, but soon, quickly after, it started to get very out of control. And a couple examples of that was I started to develop what I would call an X-ray vision. And what I mean by that is anyone that I saw, I would just start undressing them subconsciously. Because when you're watching porn, that's what you're doing. Someone comes on the screen, you undress them, you're sexualizing them. And I couldn't control who I was doing that to or not. And so that starts to do things to your mind. You start feeling shameful. You start losing your confidence. And it was really, really tough. And one of the other things that porn did is it really started to lower my standards when at first I said, I'm not going to have sex till marriage. And then I'm watching porn and I'm going, well, it looks like they're having a lot of fun. Why shouldn't I be having fun? I worship this God who wants, loves me and cares about me. So why wouldn't he want me to do something like this? So I started having sex. But when I was trying to have sex many times, I was experiencing what's called porn-induced erectile dysfunction. And I didn't know that quite at the time. But I couldn't get an erection when I was with a girl. And I would always just assume it's her fault. It's not me, it's her. But soon later on, I learned that it was definitely the porn that was doing that to my mind. So flash forward, Becca and I meet each other. And is that where you wanted me to end right there?
Well, so I'm curious now that you said that, how common is that?
60%, there's a Cambridge study, 60% of those who have erectile dysfunction struggle with their partner, but not with porn. And so porn-induced erectile dysfunction is when you can get things going if you're watching the craziest stuff online. But when you get into that, moment with your partner, you really, really struggle to get things going.
Yeah. And it's just crazy how the age at which people are experiencing erectile dysfunction has just lowered so dramatically. It's now people under 40 are more likely to experience ED than those over 40. Whereas in the past, you would have thought, oh, it's an older person's issue to have ED, but it's just rampant.
And the stat on it is from 1948 to 2002, 2 to 3% of men under 40 struggled with erectile dysfunction. But since 2010, 6 studies have shown rates between 14 to 33%, 1,000% increase. Wow. And so when you see those Hims commercials online or on TV, and it's all young men in their 20s and 30s, why do young men need this?
Right.
Well, that's why, because they've been watching so much porn.
Wow. So
That's just terrifying.
yeah.
It's just like, how does this stat even work? I mean, I'm thinking of, is it a medical issue, right? I mean, as you get
Low
older,
testosterone
I mean, there's
or
a blood flow issue that really that ties to that, but we can't dismiss the psychological issue that you talked about.
Yeah.
Becca, what was your experience when you were younger? Because you guys are younger than us. And so you were probably dating, before you met Manny. And what were you finding in the different men, boys that you dated prior to that?
Yeah, so it was actually pretty common. When I was dating someone, I want to say like 14 years old, and my boyfriend at the time, he said, "I'm addicted to porn." He told me that when I was 14, and I was like,
Mm.
"Okay." I came from a Christian household, super sheltered. I'm like, I don't even know I don't even know like what that means really. I'm like, I know what porn is, but like never seen it before, anything. So I was just like, okay, well, like I'd love to help you with that. And he was like, you don't understand how serious this is. Like this breaks up people's marriages. And he knew that. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I still want to be with you. Like, let me know if I can help. But I had no idea what to do to help him with this,
Yeah, at
obviously.
14,
At
who would
14,
know?
never
Yeah.
seen it, don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
But then, flash forward to college, I date a few different people, and oh yeah, it was like finding porn on their computers was it was like, yeah, it's became like, okay, this is something that most every guy seems to do, and it's very normalized. It's very normalized. So at one point I was just like, every guy I know is watching this, like maybe I should watch it a little bit. And so there was a short stint in college when I was single, and I was, let me check this out. And uh I stopped very quickly once I met Manny, and I was just like, I want to have a real relationship. I hate watching this. I was just bored, whatever. So anyways, that was kind of my experience.
So it wasn't hard for you to stop watching it.
No, it wasn't. I
Yes.
never got to a level of like, I'm compulsive with this. It was just experimental, I would say. And
Mhm.
I went, okay, once I'm in a relationship, I'm going to stop. And I've actually heard that from a number of women where they're like, okay, I can just turn this thing off and go, I'm fully in it with my partner. But when you're talking about the difference of, okay, I watched for a month when I was in college, and I've been watching for 10 plus years before we met, it does different things to your brain when you're watching it for that long of a time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the thing that Manny talked about. He said, "Oh, is meth good in moderation?" Right? I mean, and I don't know if I'm jumping ahead on some of the questions that we have, but I know that continued porn exposure does certain things to your neurochemistry that's very similar to being addicted to meth. And maybe you can tell us about that
Oh
real
yeah.
quick.
Well, crazy.
Unless I'm jumping, Charlie.
No,
Okay,
it's good.
good.
A
Good
crazy
question.
stat is that adolescents who viewed violent porn intentionally were 6 times more likely to report sexually aggressive behaviors than those who had not. And so when we think about that, how crazy that is, 88% of porn scenes contain physical aggression. And when I read that stat, here's how crazy this was. I didn't even know what that meant. I go, what do you mean? That's just sex. That's normal. And we're talking about hitting, spitting, slapping,
Mm.
choking. These have been so normalized. 49% of porn scenes contain verbal aggression. And I won't share those words, but you can use your imagination or don't use your imagination. And so what is this doing to young kids' minds? Well, 1 out of 10 porn users is 10 or younger. And so these kids have these supercomputers on their hands. And we did this internal study at Team Vulnerable where we typed in the word boobs into Google, and you get 369 million results in 0.79 seconds. And that's not even what we're talking about right there. We're talking about way super extreme stuff. And it is just so damaging to their minds. And what happens is when kids are watching and they get desensitized, they need more and they need more. And what happens is when you're in a super turned on state and you're on a Pornhub, let's say, and then you scroll across something that's scary, then what happens is the neurons that are firing together are now wiring together. And now when you see something scary, you're turned on. So I see a woman getting hit. I have a boner now. I don't know why. I see gay porn. I have a boner now. I don't know what's going on. And all of these things are saying, I don't like this. but I want this. And it's a really scary path that a lot of these kids have been going down.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So how did you know there was a problem? So you guys met, you're getting together, you're dating, you're thinking about getting married. At what point does it become a problem for the two of you?
Yeah, I knew Becca was the woman that I wanted to marry. When we first met, we hung out every single day for the first 6 months. We were even going to class with each other. We were different majors, but we'd go to school with each other. And I knew that she was the woman that I wanted to marry. And I said, 3 months from now, I'm done with this once we get married. And then I said, 2 months before the wedding, I'm done. 1 month, 1 week, and it's the night before our wedding. And I still remember the scene that I watched the night before our wedding. Now, when we got married, we had an amazing wedding, but when we went to the honeymoon suite, I had porn-induced erectile dysfunction, and I couldn't even get it going. And it was so tough. And in that moment, I knew I had to let her know that it wasn't her. She wasn't the problem. And I let her know that I was addicted to porn, and it was that was the reason why I wasn't able to get things going. But in that moment, I didn't say I wanted to quit. I just said, I'm sorry. And so what happened with us for the next 3 years is on Becca's end, she just kind of wanted to sweep it under the rug, and she wanted me to fix it on my own. And on my end, I said, well, I can still do this as long as I can have sex once or twice, or every once in a while, and just kind of keep this charade going. I can still live this double life. And so, as you can probably guess, that started to cause a lot of problems.
So, Becca, how was that for you? Your wedding night, you've dreamed of this your whole life, and here things are not happening the way that you thought they were going to happen.
Yeah.
Even though he's saying it's not you, that would be really hard not to internalize and take personally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was just like, this is not meeting my expectations of what I thought my wedding night would be. Like, I always thought there would be sex. Didn't know exactly what it would look like, but thought there would be some sex. And so it was really tough. And I think at that time, hearing it, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm so angry, I want to be done with you or anything, but I just had no idea how to help him. And so it just felt so scary and tough that I didn't want to validate that this was part of our story. I was in denial for a while of just, okay, go fix it. And then we don't have to talk about it. And I don't have to think about how my husband had a porn addiction, how he, I just didn't want it to be part of my story so badly that I swept it under. And, in hindsight, it's like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have stood up and tried to help him at that point. But one, I don't think he was quite ready at that point. Like he was saying, he didn't say, oh, I want help with this. It was, hey, I'm sorry. And so it was really tough. It was challenging. And I think in the back of my mind, those first few years while we're having sex, I'm like, are you thinking about me? Are you thinking about we were watching on the screen earlier? Or, I don't know if you are, because we haven't talked about it. I don't know if you're still watching or not. I have my assumptions, but I'm not trying to catch you doing it. I don't want to know. So it was a really tough few years. Yeah.
So you didn't really talk about it much after the disclosure on the honeymoon. It was like, oh, okay, now we can hide from it for a little while.
Well, I would say, one of the biggest things was when I would be messing up and I'd be watching porn, I would say, I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't. Because if I bring this up to her, she thinks I quit and she's going to leave me. And I've also been told by society that you can't quit this. And psychologists say this thing is good. And, it's okay in moderation. And so I felt there is no solution to this problem. And all I can do is just make the best of my situation. I don't want to be doing this. Something inside of me has been addicted to this thing, but there is no hope. There is no solution to this problem. And so things just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I'd be angry. I'd be paranoid. It was just doing all types of terrible things to my mind. And, really, that's when it just started breaking down our relationship, because I was just a monster. It was never physical or anything like that, but I would just fly off the handle because porn had just been destroying those stress reactivity systems that were in my head that would allow me to calm down, think rationally. Everything was just, if you don't do exactly what I want, when I want, then I'm upset, not just in the bedroom, right? But just in life in general. That's what porn does to the mind. It tells you that you can have whatever you want, whenever you want. Women are just objects, and it's just brainwashing so many people. And it's just a terrible, terrible thing.
Yikes.
Yeah. Before we go on to the next question, which I just had something come to my head, when you guys got married, and I think about, when we got married, like, I'm looking for the right way to phrase this. I just don't think, and I know this is going to be an easy one for you, but I just don't think there were the tools that, in your relationship, in your world, or the tools that were in our world, right, to be able to handle this, because we're told by society, like, it's bad. It's like being an alcoholic, or like whatever it is. Right.
Or that it's totally normal and fine.
Yeah. And so we're told that. And so, for Becca's point of view, the only thing I can see is, like, I really don't know what choice you had at that point. Not like you had some tools, not like you had resources. And I know I'm sort of teeing it up for you, but there's been a significant lack of resources other than some, just like telling people they're bad and they need to go grow up and do it on their own. And then for Manny, the same type of thing, like, the mixed messages of, like, it's fine in moderation. You don't know what the problem is. You can manage it. And then, of course, the porn is talking to your psychology in the background, just telling you that you're fine. It's okay. Just do it again. And, so you can see how that, I can just see it as you're talking about how that cycle just continued to just come around and go around with no solution, right? Becca's like, I don't really know what to do. I don't know if I can help him. Right. Wow. I feel like I'm being judged. And Manny's like, it's not you, it's me. Right. And everybody's like, it's not you, it's me, nonstop. I don't know.
Absolutely. I think, this is a relatively new issue at the staggering rates that we're seeing, where it's like when everybody got the iPhone or, the supercomputers, and, before that, porn was not so accessible. It was people going to a shady movie theater every once in a while. It's like, it is on everybody's phones, kids' phones. Unless you are locking down your devices, it is shoved in your face when you go on these devices. So yeah, the solutions for how to overcome this are very new, and we are passionate about married couples going through this together as a team. But even when we came to a head with things and I did start helping him, I felt, there was no resources. It's like we are just navigating this road completely kind of blind, figuring it out for ourselves. And that's what kept me going, was just saying, I don't want other women to feel this way that I do, just helpless to help him. It's like, I love this person. I'm building my life with him. I want to be there for him. But figuring that out was just such a process, because you're right, it's a newer issue on this scale. And
let's talk about the turning point then. So you get to a point where you're not asking if he's watching anymore, but Manny's over here falling apart and your relationship is struggling. There has to be, to get to where you guys are now, I know there was a turning point. So what was that turning point for you?
Yeah. What's crazy is, on the outside, everything looked really good. We're having a ton of business success. We were some of the top residential assisted living realtors in the state. And, I did a TED talk, and, we're traveling all around Europe, and it looks really good on Facebook and Instagram, but inside things were really, really bad. And I remember one night early on during COVID, I had a couple bottles of wine, a couple weed gummies, and I'm sitting there, I'm thinking about, what am I going to go jerk off to? And Becca, in so many words, says, do you want to go have sex? And this is how far my mind had gone. I was actually upset with her that she wanted to have sex because I wanted to go jerk off. And so I begrudgingly said, okay. We go to the bedroom and we try to get things going. And of course, the erectile dysfunction's acting up. So I tried it harder, it's acting up. And eventually I just said, you know what, Becca, you're the problem. You're the issue. I'm not the problem here. You are. And she's crying. And it was such a terrible, terrible moment. And I remember storming out of the room, just going to the living room, sitting down, putting my hands on my head and just crying out to God and just saying, God, I need help. I can't keep doing this. What do I need to do? And in that moment, the Lord said, go to Becca and ask for that help. And that was the absolute last thing in the world that I wanted to do, but it's what I knew I needed to do if I truly wanted to overcome this thing. And so I walked back in there and I just said, Becca, I'm sorry. I have a problem and I need help and I cannot beat this thing on my own. Will you be there to help me? And I thought it's going to be over. She's going to leave. And to my surprise, she said, okay. And when we first exposed this thing to the light, it lost so much of its power, just exposing it to the light, because addiction can only survive in the darkness. But when you expose it to the light, it just cannot keep growing in that environment. But very early on, we had a lot of questions like we're talking about. Becca was seeing things like, it's okay if he watches porn. Maybe you should watch porn with him, or, that means he's cheating on you. So get your affairs in order because, you're going to get a divorce soon. And on my end, I'm going, am I supposed to just use a bunch of willpower? Am I supposed to pray 25 times a day to overcome this? Or what should and shouldn't I share? And so, like I said, we really struggled in that moment, but things did get a lot better just by having those vulnerable conversations, having those vulnerable moments, and being there with each other and fighting this thing with love and not hate. Now, to quickly, answer that question, in the next season of our lives, we were working at a family business, and long story short, my father, who was the head of the company, falls ill. He passes away very suddenly, and all of a sudden, we're the heads of the company, $10-12 million a year company, 40 employees. And I remember sitting at the funeral, praying to God and just going, I know this is what my dad was supposed to do, run this company, help these people. He ran his race. He did what he was supposed to do. But I said, God, is this what you have planned in my life? And over the next few weeks and months, the Lord just put on our hearts, walk away and follow me, walk away and follow me. And this calling just did not stop. And we're just like, come on, we just want to make this thing work. Come on, no, just come on. And he just kept saying that. And so eventually we said, okay. And about 2 weeks after we walked away from those jobs, Becca and I were out at dinner. I still remember where we were, over at So Tall down the street. And we just look at each other almost at the same moment and go, I know exactly what God wants us to do. And God wants us to help married couples overcome porn addictions as a team. And that moment was really, really cool. Just having that God moment right there. But it was also incredibly scary because I'm like, how are we supposed to help anyone overcome this? I'm not a doctor. I'm still kind of struggling with this. I mean, I got porn blockers on my phone, but I still feel like an animal in a cage where if I didn't have the cage around me, I might still go look at porn. And a few days after that, I was working out, and I remember it felt like a lightning bolt hit me from the sky, and I fell to my knee, and I just felt the Lord say, raise up an army to fight this evil power. And in that moment, I had complete peace because I realized that God was the one who was leading us, and all we had to do was follow. And so we said, okay, God, what do you want us to do? Let's do it. And so we just started reading everything there was on addiction and sexual addiction and porn addiction and everything there was out there. And what we found very early on is that porn is nothing but a pain reliever, a pain for something going on, big or small. Everyone has been through pain and trauma in their life, some more than others, but everyone has been through pain. And when I realized that porn was just a pain reliever for something going on, I said, that makes sense, but my life is awesome. I don't have any pain in my life. I mean, what are you talking about? I got the best wife. I've made money. I've had success. But as I slowly started to peel back the layers of the onion, I thought about how when I was a small child, first grade, second grade, I was held back. I was bullied. I was put on all these different medications because I wasn't keeping up with the other kids. And I always felt like an imposter. And so when I became very successful in my mid to late 20s, I just felt like I don't deserve this. I don't deserve this. And I would wash down those feelings with alcohol and with food and with porn and with weed. And once I took the time to heal that pain inside, I was able to have absolute freedom from this. My anger and paranoia went away. I lost 40 pounds from overcoming this. I wasn't even trying to do that. It was just
happy byproduct.
It was just a nice, happy byproduct. And I was finally able to learn how to love myself. And Becca and I's love life grew to levels that I never could have imagined. Not to be TMI, but that love, connection, and intimacy grows every single day. And it's just been absolutely beautiful. We're expecting our third child. So in 3 years or 4 years. So, it works.
Wow. Wow. It works now.
It works.
No ED problems.
No ED problems at all. In fact, having a lot of kids. Yes.
So I'm just curious because you talked about your turning point, your aha moment. How would somebody else know if, like, how would they know if they're struggling, if this is an issue for them in their relationship? What are some signs that someone might realize they have a problem?
Well, I think step number one is if you're 35 minutes into this podcast and you haven't shut this off by now, you obviously, there's some reason why you're here. So that's first step, right? Second is asking yourself, why are you going to this thing? Because it's not that you're horny. And we talked about a little bit earlier, marital relationships. If you have sex at least one time a week, you're very satisfied in the lovemaking department. If you have it 2, 3, 4 times, it doesn't really get a whole lot higher. But as long as you're having sex once a week, it's nice and high. When it dips below that, that's when happiness levels start to go down. So it's not that you're horny. You're really only truly horny a couple times, maybe once or twice a week, truly horny. The other times you're hungry, angry, lonely, tired, bored, or stressed. And we call that halt the BS. And deeper than that, you might have pain or trauma that you're ultimately dealing with and that you've been carrying for a long time, just like myself with the imposter syndrome. But one of the other things I would say, I think people don't want to get help because they say, well, I have to call myself an addict and I got to go to this meeting and sit in this room with all these strangers and, say I'm an addict every day. I don't care if you call yourself an addict, compulsive, whatever you call yourself. Just admit that you have a problem and that you need help, because if you could have beat this thing on your own, you would have beat it a long time ago.
Yeah. I think our students have had obviously different things that have tipped them off that it is a problem. We've had students share with us, hey, I jerked off 10 times today before I saw you guys on this, that, wherever they came across our information. It's like, if it is taking up that much time, that is a sign. It's definitely a problem.
That's a lot of time.
That's
Yeah.
a lot of time spent.
Yeah.
The average addict spends about 11 to 12 hours a week on consuming porn. And then 2, I think people get really hung up on, like Manny was saying, oh, the addict. It's like, strip away that label. If it's a problem, it's a problem. If you can't stop yourself when you have the urge to watch it and you need to clear out the rest of your day just to make it happen, to go jerk off right in that instance, that is a clear sign that this has become an issue for you.
Yeah. Yeah. When you talk about addiction, it's interesting because I don't really think of it that way so much either. I do think of it more of like, compare it to a compulsion.
Right.
Maybe, and we all have some way that we escape from emotions that we don't enjoy feeling. And I think that really is the bigger issue with it, and maybe my compulsion is to get on my phone and just to scroll Instagram.
Yeah.
Maybe someone else's compulsion to deal with these negative feelings is to eat, to go get a tub of ice cream or to overeat or to drink booze or whatever it might be. It really acts more like a compulsion. Mm-hmm. And so we look at these sexually charged images and, masturbate, and all that feels really good in the moment, but it becomes this loop. It becomes this cycle, because whatever you were feeling that led you to that point, well, now after you've done all of that, then you're left with shame, guilt, and negative feelings again. So now I'm feeling bad again. So then I need to do the whole thing over again in order to get out of this cycle of feeling bad. Yeah. So really, I think if we can start to see it less shamefully, because we all have some compulsion that we turn to when we start to feel negative feelings that we want to get rid of. It's maybe I go shopping. Well, maybe somebody else looks at porn. And how can we deal with the root cause of it, as you referred to it earlier? I love that. And it could be something as simple as boredom. Don't you think? It could just be like, I can't deal with boredom because I've lived in such chaos my whole life that peace and quiet are irritating to me. And this boredom I need to do something with.
Absolutely. There's this stat from Patrick Carnes, who wrote Out of the Shadows, a sex addict expert. And he talked about how 83% of sex addicts also have another addiction. And so what people do a lot of times is, just like we're talking about, they trade one addiction for another. Hey, I don't drink anymore, but I smoke, 4 blunts a day. Okay, well, you're not better at that point, right? You just traded one thing for another. And so one of the big things, just like you're talking about, is we always say porn is not the true problem that we need to deal with. Yes, porn is a problem, but it's a symptom of the root problem that we ultimately need to handle. And once that's handled, you no longer have those uncontrollable compulsions to go and to do these things. Those go away, and then we can create an environment that's going to give us life instead of death.
Yeah. And you said something interesting there about like, we all have these things, whether it's scrolling on Instagram or eating too much ice cream. That was a huge piece for us where it's just like taking away the shame and the stigma that comes with like, I have a problem with porn. And people are like, ugh, I don't want to talk about that. And it's like, this is something that needs to be talked about. Like we shared that stat, 1 in 10 porn users is 10 or under. This
Mm.
issue, the percentages are insane now, but it's just like for this upcoming generation, it's going to be worse unless we stand up and say, hey, like back in was it 70s or 80s, it was like everyone smoked and drank, and it's like your grandma was smoking and drinking while she was pregnant. There was all of this normalized behavior back in the day. And then when those things came to the light, like, hey, this is really damaging XYZ, that helped people to stop doing it. And so we need that same kind of revolution as what happened with smoking. Like, hey, you're going to get lung cancer. It's like, hey, your relationships are massively suffering. Your brain chemistry is getting all whacked out. You can't look at women normally anymore. You're having all these sexualized thoughts, the paranoia, the depression, the shame, all of these things. Like, this isn't a good thing. Like it's been sold, it's been so normalized. I used to love Friends, the show, growing up. It's like I'm watching that as a 13-year-old. And I'm like, oh, this show's great. I was watching it back with Manny. I was, breastfeeding my our second born, watching through the whole show, and he's watching a lot of episodes with me. And he's like, almost every single episode talks about porn, normalizes it. And it's not these huge things, except there is an episode that's literally called The One with All the Porn. But most every single episode talks about it. Just sprinkled in. It's everywhere. It's talked about in every mainstream show. So many shows have been like completely ruined for me because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just this subtle brainwashing that it's happening across all the content that we're consuming, where it's like, this is normal, but then also don't talk about it. You're terrible if you struggle with
Shame.
this, but everybody does it. It's like, so people are like,
and the shame
and
is
how do I make
the
sense
shame
of this?
is and shame is such a low vibration, awful thing to feel, that the more we shame people, the more they're going to do it, because it's another escape from the bad feelings. So
Exactly.
it's just the wrong approach to try to say, okay, I'm just going to guilt myself out of this or shame myself out of this.
Absolutely.
Can we talk a little bit about solutions? You talked about bringing it into the light. Talk to me
I
about
love
some
that
of the
part.
solutions that you guys teach. And I mean, obviously you teach this over massive periods of time and we have a few minutes, but what are some takeaways for people?
Yeah, really, there's 5 steps to it. And first is admitting that you have a problem, getting that teammate on your side, handling that root problem, changing your environment, and then paying it forward. And if you can do those things, in general, you're going to have success. And there's obviously more pieces that go into each one of those individual categories. But in short, that's what it is. Admit that you have a problem, get a teammate on your side, handle the root cause, change that environment, and then pay it forward to that next generation.
And one other thing that I think was huge for Emmanuel was just dismantling the porn fantasy. This was kind of one of the last puzzle pieces to fall, was just this idea that, oh my goodness, all these porn stars are loving it. They love their life. They want to have sex all the time. And when we delved into these statistics and realized the truth about this horrible industry, it's like, I would love to ruin porn for people today while they're listening. I would love to do that. Like, I found out that Skittles had cancerous things in it and it was completely ruined for me. And it's like, I want to do the same with porn for people, where it's like, hey, when you're trying to spice up your relationship and watching that sexy video on Friday night, there is a very real likelihood that the person that's in that video is either underage or was trafficked, because there was just a crazy stat. Between 2011 and 2020, the number of trafficking offenses that were reported went up 62% in that time period. 80% of them were sex trafficking, and of those, the vast majority was for porn. So when people
my
are
gosh.
watching, they have no idea. Like, you're not checking birth certificates. You don't know if this person actually consented to being a part of this video. So it's, I'm not trying to shame anyone who's been watching that. It's just like a tough reality to realize that makes you go, oh, I kind of want to throw up watching this, because this could have been a woman or a child that was ripped from their home, and I'm watching them to jerk off. And it's so sad. It's so terrible. But that's the reality, is that the demand is so high. People have been watching for so long that the stimulus they need is so much greater and greater, that the demand has just gotten too much for willing participants to be able to be enough supply. So it's really crazy.
And just to finish on that one, one of the things that sometimes people say is, hey, I don't have a problem. I just watch legal teen porn. I say, you just watch legal teen porn. Got it. Okay. So she's 18, she's having sex, consenting. You love it. Oh, yeah. Okay. It's one day earlier. She's 17 and 364 years old. She consents to the scene. You watch it. Are you throwing up? And when I say that, and people's eyes just go, oh my goodness. And they don't realize that their mind has slowly been being warped, because at what point are you not turned on by this? At what point, what day, what exact day, what point? And all of a sudden it's 18, 17, 16, 15, and they got a plane ticket to Thailand in their hand at some point, going to have sex with a child. And so when we talk about this is destroying marriages. This is causing rapes. And we've had children reach out to us, say, I was going to kill myself because I've been watching so much of this. I feel so hopeless. I feel so terrible inside. And because I saw one of your videos, I'm not going to do that. And so, like Becca was saying, in the 1980s, after the health threats of smoking became widely publicized, about half of people who ever smoked addictively quit, and more than 90% of them did that without any type of treatment. And so literally just by speaking up, by sharing this episode with someone, you literally could save a life. You could prevent a rape. You could save a marriage. And, we always say it. It's like, hey, we're just two people who just stood up to this problem. And now in a little over a year, we've had over 500 people get our course in over 25 different countries. And we're talking all over the world, and we're seeing healing. We're seeing marriages come back together. We've had rapes be prevented. We've had suicides be prevented because we were willing to stand up for the truth. And so if you're passionate about this, stand up, share this episode, and do the same.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. I love the fact about, shining the light on that dark side of it. And sometimes when you shine light on a problem, especially in a relationship, then you become vulnerable, which is, you guys are team vulnerable, which is perfect, because if you can do that, if you can shine a light, if you can then bring strength to one another and then look to solve the problems. And I love the idea of solving the underlying problem, because sometimes if you don't, right, we're all using coping mechanisms, right? Which gets to our compulsions. And, unless we can figure out why it is we're trying to cope, like what that problem is. And if we can address that, then we can take away some of the pain, and then we take away some of the pain, we take away some of the shame, and then we can start bringing couples together in their relationships. I don't know. That's my part.
Well, just like you brought it to the light between the two of you, it's bringing to light the emotion that is causing and shining a light on that.
Yeah.
Because I think so much, we just start to get a little bit uncomfortable, and we start to run from that emotion, again, looping. But again, it's shining the light on the problem, but it's also shining a light on the root cause problem. What is that emotion for me? What is the emotion? What is my strategy? Let's call it a strategy. This has just been my strategy for dealing with things that are hard. And we don't like to feel hard things. We like to escape hard things.
Yeah.
And, if we can sit with it, nobody wants to sit with negative emotions, but if you'll just sit with it sometimes for a few minutes, it'll pass. Yeah. And isn't it so much better to figure out what it is and to feel it rather than numb it, feel it and let it pass, than to push it down and have it come back up again in an hour and another hour and another day and another 10 times a day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, you can bring that other person into it, and you start handling your problem instead of running away from it. We always say a boy runs away from his problems and goes to a pain reliever. A man stands up and faces his challenge head on. And when you do that time and time again, your self-esteem rises, and you start having less problems because you're handling your problems, and your brain slowly starts to rewire. At some point, And I know this happened to me. I think it was about 3-4 months in. I just went, I cannot believe that I struggled with this for 15 years. This is so easy not to look at porn now, when before it felt like this is impossible. And I didn't get there overnight. It was one day at a time, moving one step in the right direction. And that was the key to success.
Yeah. What you just described is building resilience.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Right. And being able to feel hard things and then be able to go, okay, I'm still okay. So maybe I can feel a little bit more hard things and realize I'm still okay. I don't need to escape this. So what you're describing is exactly how we build character resilience, but really just resilience so that we can handle things better.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How many distractions are there in the world right now that have been normalized to help us not cope with difficult things?
I mean, we literally got
Right.
we got
So
Apple
many-
selling us a $4,000 headset to escape from the world, and Mark Zuckerberg going, no, buy my escape from reality device. It's like we got to stand up to this because I always say it's like we have unlimited porn. You can see more naked people than you ever could possibly imagine, but shouldn't we be way happier then if we have unlimited dopamine on demand? We have porn in our pocket at all time. We have better bathrooms and all the kings of the past before, better food, better healthcare, better entertainment. But we're not happier. More and more people are becoming depressed. And so maybe we need to start standing up to our problems instead of running away from them. And that's what we're here to help people do.
Yeah.
Why don't we go ahead and have you guys tell us a little bit about how people can find you, the name of your website, and if this resonates with them or they know someone that this episode can help, where can they go?
Absolutely. Well, you can go to teamvulnerable.com. We'll have a description, a link in the description. Use that link. It'll take you right to where you need to go. But in short, what our program is all about is being a team, getting that person that you are closest to, which is your spouse, and asking for that help. And we teach them how to support you. We teach you how to overcome this. And the reason why it's most important that you have them on your side is there is no one in the world that cares more about you than that person. And it's not about porn. It's about what's going on in your life. And so they love you. They care about you. They do want to help you. And guess what? When you bring this up, it might be hard, but in time, they will understand. And we'll be there to help support you guys. We will literally talk to both of you on the phone. When you need it, we will be there for you. Yeah. So it's just about having that one moment of strength and vulnerability, and then just taking one step again tomorrow, and you absolutely can have freedom. And a couple quick questions. First, I brought up Jesus a ton on this. I don't ever try, but I'm passionate about the Lord. Our course is not for you got to be this religion, otherwise you can't be a part of it. No, this is for anyone who's looking for healing from porn. So just know that. And the other thing is we wanted to make this course extremely affordable. So that way anyone could get this course and anyone could find healing. So just know that as well. 30-day money back guarantee, 7-day free trial. We will literally walk you step by step through this process. We are here for you. And I'm telling you, I'm going to shoot that little devil off your shoulder that's probably whispering in your ear. Porn is not helping your marriage. You need to stand up to this thing. Otherwise, you're just walking down a slow death. And you can have a high bottom or a low bottom. You can wait till your kid walks in on you and sees you. You can wait till you lose your job because of this. You can wait till you get a divorce and then say, I want to quit. Or you can do it right now and be the hero of the story. And we are on your team. We are on your side, and we want to help you through that. So use the link below. Get started. Team Vulnerable is our company's name, and we're a nonprofit. So if you're passionate about this too, donate, help out however you can, and we're here for you.
I love the name of your organization. I love that it's Team Vulnerable. We talk a lot about vulnerability on our podcast and how vulnerability equals
intimacy.
Intimacy.
Yeah. You
Right.
can't have intimacy without being vulnerable. And that is, I think, probably one of the most beautiful things that have come out besides watching you guys interact with each other is just how can we gain intimacy? Intimacy equals better sexual intimacy. It equals better connection.
Friendship.
It equals better friendship. It equals better relationships. And you can't do that when you're hiding something from each other.
Well, thanks so much, you guys, for being here. We really loved having you on the show and appreciate you. Vulnerability isn't easy. Like, we have to be able to steady our heart and have that honest conversation, bring it out into the light and work together as a team. Kind of my last thought is just that what I love seeing about you guys is your togetherness, your we-ness, the team. You mentioned team. And I think when we look at couples who are successful and those who aren't, there's a lot of I, and me. And when you listen to couples who are successful, you hear a lot of we. teamwork.
Yep.
And so I just love that your whole mission is doing this together. And as we do things together as a team with more we-ness, we're going to be more successful.
Yeah. Amazing.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
No, that's been great.
All right. Thanks so much, you guys, for being here. Appreciate you.
Thank you
for having
guys.
us.